lesbians.
And so you get flack for anything. So I was writing on my blog about how I like women who wear suits, right? And then I get like, oh, you lesbians always like women who wear suits. And I'm like, no. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, I like a person in good tailoring. Like, what does that actually mean in terms of all lesbians ever? You know, it's like, that's not true and it has no meaning. But I think everyone will always find you're always going to find someone who has to find something.
Yeah. Well, especially me.
Especially you.
I don't know, when I was drawing all the portraits of people, it was really, something that I was working to not do is like objectify the people in it, because it was like supposed to be about the collaboration. How do you want to be presented? Or how do you want to have this naked interpretation of who you are out there in the world? And a lot of people I didn't know until I barely knew when I drew, and it's like I don't know. I mean, I think it is totally possible. It's not like, I feel like if I'd done them in a different way, they would come across really, really differently. Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is that intent is really key to the idea, because your intent was not to objectify.
Well, I mean, I think you can have intent to do things and totally mess it up all the time.
That's true.
Well, here's a question. What is it to objectify? Like, what is a drawing of a woman that is objectifying a woman?
Turning her into an object is the general.
But I mean, what? Making her like,
What's the rule? The lamp rule? The lamp rule is, I'm sorry, I'm going to blank on, there's a cartoonist name, is if you can take a woman and replace her with a lamp, then she's been objectified. Like that she's background scenery, that she's not functioning as a individual, but just as an object.
Well, that's a little.
I think that was in.
Okay, so you're happy.
This was it.
So if you draw two women having sex together, you take out one woman, you put a lamp in there.
No, two lamps.
Two lamps. I'm going to draw that comic. Yes. Lamp sex. Okay.
But I think this was in the context of film, where you're talking about a female character who could be just literally be replaced with an object.
I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of gray area, especially when you're talking about like looking at like drawing what you think is sexy and drawing what you think is a sexy body. Like for anything, drawing anything that you think is cute, or if it falls into the realm of a stereotype, and how much does that mean that it's objectified? If you're simplifying something, well, we simplify everything in comics. Everything is edited down. I mean, that's kind of the point. So I think it's kind of fuzzy. I would almost say that it's almost case by case, and then it's open to interpretation.
Sure, and then who becomes the arbiter? Because if you're saying I am objectifying, but I think it's okay, or if you're saying I'm not,
right?
It becomes who becomes the arbiter of all your work? Do you get to decide? You should be the one who gets to decide.
I feel like I should decide what I do.
And I guess it's just like when it's okay, because the thing is, like, I think that you're right. I think there is a lot of objectifying going on. I think we do that. I think everybody does that.
And we do that in our non-art, like whatever, in our desire. That happens all the time. And
it's just when does it get to be dangerous or limiting, or not giving somebody credit for having thoughts, or abusing, like running over somebody. It's objectifying isn't. Well, here I don't think that it in and of itself is a reprehensible thing. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the why the objectification is happening, and then what happens with that.
Last night in the Pioneers of Queer Women Comics, Trina Robbins was saying she got a lot of blowback, for instance, for drawing sexy women. And the early feminists were beautiful women. Beautiful women. Yeah, beautiful women. And that early feminists were yelling at her, you're objectifying them. You're making them just like the guys like them. So clearly there's always somebody out there who's willing to step in to be arbiter.
Well, and it comes into how do you draw a woman's body? What is the body type you're portraying? Is it realistic or not realistic? And if you draw, if you're a cartoonist, often you're drawing things that are not realistic. They're representative. So if you're drawing a woman's body in a way that might not be 100% realistic, what does that mean? And that's where they were talking about the levitating boobs
Yes.
and all that kind of stuff. And I think as cartoonists, we deal with that, that's what we do, is we have to represent these complicated images in a few lines. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that. That's all question.
Was there a question out there? Do we have a?
Oh, no.
Oh, yes, there's a question over there, and then we'll get you one. Yes.
Oh, I guess you're saving comments for, not
Okay.
a good.
Maura, you had a question?
Well, I guess the question then is, do you ever have to correct your reader who is coming from potentially a position of, I hate to use the word ignorance because it can mean something negative, but like, there's a recent example of a New Yorker article that the woman said, do you think am I describing my dog or my Jewish boyfriend, and got a lot of flack for it, when it turns out the writer herself was Jewish, or at least half Jewish. So do you ever get those comments that you're objectifying from someone who might not know your background?
Not so much that they don't know my background. I think it's having a different worldview. And I think the reason that some women were offended by the piece that I was, the example that I gave with the white guy beating me, they saw slavery. They saw something else.
They were responding to
They
the
were
thing that
responding
offended
to
them.
the thing that they go through, which, I go through too, and I see it as well. But, that's Andrew. He's in Australia,
Right.
So I think that when I heard what you were saying about describing my Jewish boyfriend or my dog, that took me back to Nazi that image was Nazi Germany, and no Jews, no dogs on the storefronts, which is, I would be triggered too, but I would have to think about what the context was, who's writing it, and all of that.
It's really, it's hard. It's so hard to say. There's no easy answer. Here's a really short, tiny story, but there's boobs in it. I got back from a trip from abroad. I teach comics in Seattle at Cornish College of the Arts, and one of the students, hi, welcome back. She said, "What did you think of that censorship thing? You were in it." And I'm like, what? And what had turned out was the Seattle Art Museum had run a show called LELLES, and it was all women. And so my school, for some reason, had decided to show an exhibit that was all men. It was, I can't remember, right? It was in the basement gallery. But in any case, so there was one piece that it was these very cartoony boobs, just like this kind of grid of boobs. And it had the names of all of these different women in the arts in Seattle. And it wound up getting censored. Like, it wound up getting pulled, primarily because a couple of the faculty members had complained because they were listed and were uncomfortable with that. And I was also, but I wasn't around, so I didn't have to weigh in, really. And so I actually, it was odd. I was like right back, still jet lagged, and I was like, okay, well, let's have a talk about intent and whose responsibility it is to make it clear. How would this have been different if it had been by a woman? It's one of the reasons that I have wanted to go to the dinner party, Judy Chicago, here, and I'm finally going to this trip. Who is representing these? Who is objectifying here? And if it's an in-group, how is that different? And is it okay to present it that way? Whose responsibility is it to get that particular message across? And I think it's fuzzy. I don't think there's a good answer for that.
Years ago, I was in the UK, and a friend of mine who was from Wales turned to me and said, "Do you want to learn Welsh?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, "Bah." And I said, "You see, that's the kind of joke that's hilarious if you say it, but if I say it, I get beaten up." And it's that simple. The in-group has privilege in the in-group. I get to objectify because I'm in the in-group. You know, if we become the gang of 5 here and we say, well, we get to show women who are this and that, and we get to show women who could be lamps, but we think it's funny.
Right.
You know, and we can show women, we can show all women as lamps, you know, it'd be hilarious. So famous women as lamps, I could see the series now. And, and people would find it funny because you were all here, right? But a person who is not in this room sees that and freaks the hell out because it's not funny at all.
Well, in your situation, you know, Judy Chicago was celebrating the pussy.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen this boob art, but I have a hunch what they were doing is saying, oh, women artists, let's reduce them to boobs.
Oh, I think that's what
So both these pieces of art were.
But how would it have been different? Like if you didn't know, it was accidentally in the show of all women. Like how would you have interpreted that differently?
Totally.
Would you have interpreted that differently? I think I would have.
Yeah, completely differently.
I don't know without seeing it. Were they drawings of boobs or photographs?
They were like well, no, they were like you dot dot you.
Were
dot,
they different?
Dot, boobs.
Like different shapes and sizes, or they were all the same?
Sort of, just because it was hand drawn.
No.
I'll try it for you.
Okay.
It'd be easy.
So, but I mean, if they were actually showing like all different breasts and saying, look at this variety of women, I mean, it really is what it looks like. Because if it's just saying, okay, women artists, their tits, and reducing all women artists into a comment on women artists, and it's men making that comment, yeah, it's ridiculous. But if it's a different way of showing I mean, is there a way you could make that art to make it interesting? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much we would need to say here.
Okay, imagine
I think it would
a
be a little
1970s feminist art collective that's saying, we're going to take, I'm just making this up, but, you know, we're going to take all the women and show their breasts and, you know what I mean? It could have been done in that way,
but
right?
it's interesting, would it still have been, I mean, you use the word ridiculous and to render that down, it's worthy of ridicule. And you can imagine that 70s women collective being ridiculed for that very thing by both men, both establishment people, and both other feminist collectives who felt that was too reductive. So you could see, like, there's never really a way, there's never an ultimate arbiter that's going to say, okay, well, we can accept this, but not this. Because the answer is, well, we accept what we do because we were thinking, and not what they do, necessarily. So maybe it's always a function of time, place, and condition, you know.
Yeah, I mean, in one of the other pictures up here, that the 2 milk glasses, I'm like, that are being poured into my mouth. It's kind of like, you know, whiteness of, I don't know where it is. Consuming whiteness, punch shot, whatever. You know, it's like not a empowering image, but I'm trying to like reclaim, make a, you know, statement about being inundated with whiteness, and I don't know. I had something more articulate in my head.
Well, just read your mind.
You know, and I'm doing like a picture at the moment, which is like it's for like a erotica themed sort of show at the end of the month here. But it's shot. It's like drawn from here, and it's like me nude. It's like a lot of boob, and there's like a milk bottle pouring the map of Australia in my chest in milk, and then all the ingredients for like curry paste around me, onions and garlic and those kind of things. And it's like, it's disgusting, but you get it, right? You know. I don't need to explain it, right? But it's like, you know, it's like a really like hetero porn kind of referencing image that I'm like trying to reclaim.
But you're reclaiming it, so it takes it away from the objectification. So if it were used for an advertisement for curry, we'd all be like up in arms going, "Oh my God, this is the most disgusting ad ever," you know. So is it always a matter of perspective then? And there's always somebody who says it's perfectly fine. There's always someone who says absolutely not. Any questions? Take a break. Okay. So, do we have one?
I did just want to ask, like, I felt like there was a lot of, like, kind of defend this, like, how can we make this objectification of these people's boobs okay? Like, as far as, like, because I don't know, this is really weirdly, like, the art thing that you were talking about with the, here are these people's boobs, and I'm gonna, like, name these artists and, like, make you think about their boobs. which is just like very like that. I mean, you know, but like kind of like figure out like what role can we make this okay in. And so I'm just kind of curious, like you know, why?
Why defend that, or why?
Yeah.
Well, you know, one of my students was asking, you know, they were kind of pushing me like, are you offended? And I hesitate. They were kind of goofy. They were kind of cartoony. I think that it was a kind of like a really kind of simple. It didn't seem. The script was nice. It didn't seem particularly hostile. I think it was basically just like some guy being like, just kind of like, hey, really reductive and really not saying anything more than that. I think that actually, because they were so iconic, and iconic, what I mean is, it was almost as if he had stamped like a woman symbol. I mean, it was just a different way to write that. If he was actually like drawing what all of our breasts looked like, that I think would be really creepy. Like that would have read it would have read really differently. He was just like, yeah, these are all women, and so we're just going to put them in a frame. So I didn't really see that. In some ways, I didn't even really see that as a way of gazing at our bodies. I could see supporting. For example, I was trying to like flip that around. Okay, how would I feel if you know, like some women, you know, what are they, the gorilla girls? Do they even do things? You know, like put out, you know, something similar with just penises, and all of these men's name. I would have thought it was kind of funny, right? Like, you know, just like, yeah, all of these guys. Look at all of these guys, and here are like the 3 women that are in this whatever collection. I think that was.
Yeah, it's punching up and punching down.
Right. Exactly.
And
which is where the difference comes
in.
in.
Basement gallery.
Well,
So
that's why I don't think it was okay, and I wouldn't have fought for it being placed back down there. That's why I thought it created an interesting discussion, which actually wound up turning into. So here, there, you know, like there's a bunch of like 17, 18-year-olds who were just like, you know, like there's no need for feminism anymore. I mean, here I'm all jet lagged, and I'm like, okay, instant lecture and discussion on feminism and why, you know, like it's still something that is really important. And it was a really good basis for kind of exactly that discussion that you just said. No, so what issues does this bring up? What issues does this bring up that we really need to take note of as something that is really pervasive in our society? How is it that making fun of one person is not? It doesn't just flip. It doesn't just flip like the way that I just did. Why? What are the power dynamics? What are race dynamics? What are sex dynamics? What are sexual, et cetera?
Yes, question.
Sorry, just to clarify, I'm just really curious. Was this specifically like another faculty member in reaction to the rest of the show? So, was it being posited as an anti-feminist piece?
No, you know. God, I wish I had more to here. Now I've brought it up, and now it was. So let's see. So it was the show at the Seattle Art Museum was all women.
Right.
It was this pretty well respected and well received, and so I think there was just like some little cage rattlers. I mean, I teach at Cornish College of the Arts, which is a thoughtful school, and I think that they just wanted to just be like, you know, like just to point out that it's all women. Here are some issues to discuss. I mean, I don't think that there was anything pointedly misogynist about it. It wasn't like an all-men's school that was putting this together. So this was one piece that I think was just a little misguided, maybe needed. I don't really know what the.
Was it student work? I know.
Oh! No, it wasn't student work.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was a Seattle artist. Actually, come to think of it, somebody who I know who's kind of. Well, it's getting into a whole other, you know, yeah.
Okay.
No, but his work is kind of,
Okay, so let's move on to the next question then. We're gonna start down back with Texta Queen. How do you, how do you portray sex? Is it obvious that you're sexualizing things, or how do you get the point across without drawing overtly? And this was a question from Ellen. So you wrote that in an email. Do you remember?
Oh, right. Well,
so if anybody has a thought, so Jennifer Kemper, if you want to think, but how do you portray sex? How do you?
I mean, I don't really, so.
Yeah. Right.
I mean.
Well, there's a slide up here, appliance love. Oh no, it's first date.
Oh, sorry.
Do we have appliance?
Yeah, I think we have appliance love here somewhere.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's one way to portray sex. I think that I like a lot of boundaries pushed. You know, why draw a really traditional, boring sex scene? I mean, occasionally you do it because you want to say these people are having boring traditional sex. But usually, I mean, again, it depends on the context, but yeah, I want to explore in my work often, I want to explore women's pushing boundaries. And I always liked that appliance love. I always thought it was really fun and sexy. I don't know if other people do. And look at all the appliances are out of date now.
Yeah.
So it's like retro, like calculators. Like nobody has sex with a calculator anymore because they have cell phones.
Phone would
And
be cell phone,
VCRs.
right? All of us would be a cell phone, pretty much, except for the hair
Relationships
And then there's another slide I can talk about. Do I have answers in here? Okay, this I had put on a postcard, and it was banned by the U.S. Post Office for being lewd and lascivious and obscene.
Excellent.
And I got a letter saying that, which I'm very proud of. And so I thought, is it obscene if a woman, a cisgendered woman, says, "Suck my dick"? And then I also realized the reason it was banned was because it has the word "fuck" on it. And you cannot write "fuck" on a postcard. You cannot write "fuck" on the back of a postcard, even though we all do it. And this postcard has been mailed plenty of times and gotten through the mail, but it was the one time somebody in the post office stopped it. So what is lascivious and obscene? You know, it's like,
There's no sex here, there's nothing
Yeah.
sexual about it, but yet it's obscene
Yeah.
somehow because it's rude.
but I wanted to add, oh, go ahead.
Did they say lascivious?
Rude, lewd and lascivious and obscene. It's a legal
That's
term.
such
It's
old language.
It's illegal.
Very
Yeah.
It's very 1930s, you know?
that's what this panel should have been called.
1936. But I wanted to talk to you about your cats having sex, and I think it's really hot the way you draw cats having sex because their tongues are all intertwined, and I just wanted to know like what was.
There we go.
Yeah.
Just the conversation about homosexuality just started to, like, people against gay marriage, and it just seems to me that word ridiculous comes up. So it's just my little kitties. They're at home with two loving pussies, and they're talking about how humans talk about homosexuality.
Why did you use cats?
Because in nature, being that we are all animals, like the argument to me was like, okay, what are animals doing? They're not just, okay, we've decided to be heterosexual. That's not my whole argument, but I was just like, it'd be cute if they were like two little kitties and they were, having a relationship together and talking about how ridiculous we are. So it's really just, it's more about them just like trying to get back into it. At the
And
end.
smoking.
And smoking.
Smoking after that.
They
Yes.
probably shouldn't
Cat
be smoking.
It's gonna, yes, it'd probably be banned now because
No
young cats smoking. That's right. So Ellen, it was your question. So let's talk about how do you portray sex and how do you get it across?
Well, so there was that one that I pointed out about just sort of giving the sort of like the prelude and then explaining.
That's great.
So this is, well, I mean, I don't really know actually how to attack that question other than that, what I already said. Should I just...
Yeah, just help, let's tell them.
Well, can I do a digression?
Yes,
Because
of
it keeps
course.
going by and I keep wanting to do this. Would you go to the Valentines? So the stranger asked me to do some Valentines, sort of like a sort of series of cartoons, to go into their... I just stuck it in here because I really like it. And there were a few more than this. That, like some illustration. I decided that I wanted to do cutout Valentines for singles. So they were Valentines for singles. So there was another one to give to your panties that you love, and this one to the greatest butt plug ever you sent me. And this one, I put it here because I'm not a poet generally, but this is my favorite poem that I've ever written. If you can't read it, I'll read it. For my vibrator. I'm never bumming when you're humming in my plumbing. Thank you very much. My poetry career ended right there. No more need. But I guess it's that kind of thing. Just a sort of, this is more like a bigger, broader example of not necessarily showing something specific, but just sort of like this general, like when you're talking with somebody, you can talk about sex and joke about it, and there's something kind of maybe titillating. And I can get closer. Here's another one, maybe along those lines, is the how to fuck a woman with your hands. It's a little more. There. How to fuck a woman with your hands. I used to do a series of comics, full-page comics for The Stranger, a how-to series. And this is the first one that I would say this is kind of a geeky comics thing, is that I play with page design. And I like to do an organic page design, so rather than just put the information out in a grid, I try to figure out, okay, what does it call for? Like if it's about a car race, can I make it like a racetrack or something like this? So for fucking a woman with your hands, I formatted it like this. I was really proud of myself. Like how I don't know, how little could I show, really? Here is, and I got this this is Rachel Venning, who is one of the founders of Babeland, Toys in Babeland. At the time, it was Toys in Babeland. So what I would do is I'd come up with a question, I would interview an expert, and then I would map out the answer in a comic. So it starts out, get your partner hot. Get your partner hot, make out, do all these different things. Introduce your hand to her pussy. And so this is the hand. I don't know how much you can see there. And this is the pussy. There's a pussy hand pussy. Nice to meet you. It's just, and then just kind of, here's like different hand, positions and like how they might go over. And here's more specifically getting back to the G-spot and what it is that you're doing here, and then some different things that you might try. So it's actually really explicit. And at the same time, there's there's a certain way that you can take it in, and then realize that you've taken in all of that very sexual information without ever really plowing through a lot of the different. Not that it's bad to have the whole wet and sticky thing, but to just sort of like let that come like after. Or maybe in a more subtle way that you can. And more
interestingly, I think one of the biggest problems with comics being challenged in libraries and schools is, a person opens up, sees a picture they find offensive, doesn't look at the context, doesn't look at the words, doesn't look at the age rating. They go, "Oh, this is offensive." You flip past that, and if you weren't reading the words,
it says "fuck" in the middle of it.
I'm saying if you're just flipping and you're just looking at the picture and not reading the words, you wouldn't necessarily think of. This is an offensive or sex picture.
Right. Look at this hand, pussy hand. Get it out of here.
Yeah, it's gotta go. Any questions? I see a hand. All right. Okay, this was a question that I wanted to ask you. This is for myself. How do you differentiate between erotica and porn? And do you care to differentiate it, or is it all the same to you? And most importantly, do you have a different opinion about it when you're a creator and when you're a reader or a consumer of it? So I have a working definition of erotic and porn that I use. I'm not going to.
Let's hear.
All right, so the difference is entirely in who's looking where. So with porn, there's always a very obvious understanding that there's a third party watching all the time. So in porn, like for instance, in cheesy porn where you have two straight women who've been hired to have sex, they're going, you know, kissing like that, and they're kissing towards the, looking at the camera. There's always this, you are clearly watching. We understand you are watching. And erotica is when they're looking at each other and don't acknowledge that you're there at all. And that's my working definition. And I've seen comics that do both, do separately, and typically I find when I'm reading a comic and at the moment of orgasm the two characters look at you, it just creeps me the hell out. I'm like, oh wait, that was so out of the moment, you know? And I always find that to be sort of the line where porn starts, you know? But that's my working definition and no one else's. So do you have any thoughts on that? Stumped you, sorry.
Yeah, no, I use those words in context of who I'm talking to. So sometimes I think I use the word porn because it has a punch to it, and sometimes you say erotica when I'm using it to describe art. But I don't know that. I mean, porn can be erotic and erotica can be pornographic. So I don't know that I have that
really
distinction. But I like it. I like that idea. I mean, I do see the distinction. I don't know if I would call it erotic and porn. I might call it.
They're just a working. It's a working definition for me because when I was publishing, I knew exactly what I wanted to publish, and I never really wanted to go to that, that looking at you, hi, we're orgasming in your different direction, sort of thing. So.
See, I would call it good sex and bad sex.
Okay. Ellen, you have any thoughts? No. Okay. Jennifer.
I was looking those words up after reading the questions, and I was just like, erotica sounded like, now I have a feeling of what erotica is, and I think I do erotica, but I could be wrong. But it seemed like in the dictionary that erotica was just getting into, it was just a vague description where porn could be in it, but, it could
like
be.
a subset.
It could be, So I choose to.
All porn is erotica, but not all erotica is porn?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yes. So I choose to call my work erotica because I don't only do it in comics. I have a painting series. I use my middle name Yvette to put my desires down and what turns me on. And I choose to call it erotica, but I've heard people call it porn. And I disagree.
Ellen, what would you call what you draw? Is the stuff? Would you? I mean, let's look at that. The how to fuck a woman with your hands. Would you call that erotica or porn or something else?
How to.
How to? Nonfiction.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I don't. I don't classify my work, but kind of. Like I don't really think of it. I mean, I guess if I like, okay, Ellen, you have to choose one of these boxes. I would say erotica because I think that I'm more like I've been saying, like I'd rather dance around and be suggestive than be overt. I actually stuck in one of the most overt. It's just a kiss too. It's just a kiss from Marbles. That one is one of the most actually like figurative depicting.
That was pretty hot, actually.
Yeah, So I stuck that in because it's like the most overt thing that I've done. So this I would put more in the if I were to put this label this particular page anyway, it would be erotica maybe. But I mostly think of that as I don't know, just like sexual threads that feed into my work. Erotica, I guess.
Okay. Erotica, I guess, sounds good. I think that would be an
With a
awesome
face?
category in a bookstore. Erotica, I guess. I would totally buy everything there. Well, I'll catch you in 1 second. Jennifer, do you have any thoughts on this? Jennifer Kemper?
No.
Excellent. And Texta Queen?
I think the new picture I'm doing is the only thing that I would call erotica. Though the first ever of that first series that I call Texta Queen, the first drawing that I did when I was doing them for that guy, I asked 2 friends to pose, and they started getting it on while I was. That was the only one. They started getting it on while I was drawing them, and so it was very an explicit drawing. Where I'm just like, okay, and I was like, that one was maybe porn, but yeah, I don't like all the work in between those. I just they're like intimate portraits, intimate nude portraits, I don't know.
Well, this is another level of cartooning or art anyway, is how sexually attracted or turned on or how hot do you get about your own work while you're doing it? Because I think most of us are, kind of turned on by our characters, right? Why would you draw your, I don't know.
I've only dated 3 people after I've drawn them, out of nearly 200, so. Just to say.
You're drawing real I guess I meant fictional people, but you're drawing real people, so that's a whole nother level, yeah. But when you're drawing fictional characters, are you kind of attracted to some of them?
I don't really draw fictional characters.
You always draw real people that exist in the
That's
world.
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh. So every drawing that you do, there's a person that
Yeah,
corresponds.
someone poses for me, and we work on the idea together.
Space.
I just want to know, do they look at you when they're done?
I feel like we have amazing. It's amazing bonding. It's like I feel like I have all these. Yeah, because you sit. I would sit naked. I wouldn't be naked. Sometimes I would if they wanted me to. But if you feel more comfortable, you probably won't. But I'll also take my clothes off. But it's like I draw them over a couple of hours, the whole thing, and so they're sitting there naked and talking to me and whatever. And so it's like, we had this crash course bonding session. So I feel like I had a lot of intimacy.
Because it's a whole other level of intimacy.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily sexual intimacy, but emotional intimacy at a very, very intense level.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. But to your point, Jennifer, I think the answer is yes. I was talking to a fellow writer, and we were saying, well, if we're not getting turned on by our sex scenes, then we are clearly doing something very, very wrong.
But even the non-sexual parts
Yes,
of
you're just so
cartooning and
attracted
creative,
to them. Yeah.
you're passionate about your characters,
Right.
and I think there's
They have to be real enough.
there's an attraction, whatever that level is. Do you guys think so?
I don't usually have regular characters.
Yeah, you don't do that kind of stuff.
But when I do portraits or, I was just thinking about
You're
this,
doing a lot of
saying that
autobiography.
I almost always find. I did a portrait of Rachel and Rachel Venning. I'm pointing over here because that's where it was before the Babeland. Rachel and Claire. I did a portrait of them, and she said, "I've been Ellenized." And the thing is that I really like to draw. And this sounds terrible. It's not that I like to make people look good, like I'm gonna make you look, like I'm gonna make you look like you want to look or whatever. But it's just I wind up getting really into oh, that curve is so cute. I've got to get that right. And
You want the art to be beautiful.
Well, I wind up. Well, it's not even that. I just wind up getting really. It's not a sexual attraction, but it's a certain fondness almost for shapes and my brush and that.
So
kind of
is
thing.
drawing
Maybe
a
that's what's
person
coming
an
out.
erotic act?
What is erotic? I don't know. Maybe, sure. Yes.
You heard it here. Helen Forney says yes. Yes, it is. That's okay. That was cool. All right. Any questions? I just want to. Yes, you had a question in the back there.
I just wanted to follow it up. Do you think that drawing the difference between erotica and pornography is also a respectability issue? Because I think cartoonists kind of have to fight for being seen like as a legitimate writing and artistic genre. And then on top of that, erotic or pornographic creators also have to, within that world, sort of fight for their own legitimacy. So like, as somebody who draws porn myself, like I'm totally okay with people calling my work porn, even if it's not like really graphic or really explicit. So do you think that in a way, like saying, oh, it's erotica rather than saying, oh, it's pornography, is sort of a respectability issue where it's like, it just makes it sound a little nicer, a little bit more acceptable, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I use the words interchangeably sometimes, and it depends on who I'm talking to or how I'm trying to convince somebody to accept something. Or, yeah, I agree.
Because I feel like the word porn just shuts certain people down. They don't want to hear it. So if I'm talking to you and I want you to listen to what I'm saying, if I say porn to most people, they're going to be like, oh,
Done. On the other hand, it does throw people off their stride when they're getting all ready to think something about you. I was at the Toy Festival, the Toy Fair many, many years ago, and somebody said, what have you done interesting today? And I said, well, I'm a lesbian pornographer. And they were like, whoa, like it just completely took all the wind out of their sails, all ready to, be all, nasty to me because I'm not creative. And like that was just, it would totally turn that off, so.
Well, it's a strong word and a strong thing that people conjure up in their head.
Well, it's a negative word that we've appropriated.
Right.
A lot of us.
Right.
Pornography was something that was illegal, and there was a legal statement for it. And so now when we say porn, it can be this loving, cool thing, like, oh yeah, lesbian porn. I draw, whatever.
should be the other word.
Like when we say queer.
Yeah.
There was another question somewhere over here in the back. Did I see a hand up here? Wait, hang on to here.
Yeah, this is mainly for Ellen, I guess. Do you think your preference to be erotic rather than pornographic comes from, is it just a personal preference, or is it maybe like informed even subconsciously by what Jennifer was saying, that society at large tells us that women don't actually fuck?
Oh, I've drawn some more explicit things. I was actually, when I was looking through my stuff, I drew something for Dirty Stories where it was a friend of mine, and she was holding her labia open and she was being subject. I just didn't enjoy drawing it nearly as much. And I've been thinking about that, between agreeing to be on this panel and coming here. Just like the same thing, like I was looking at a woman at the airport who had, she had like one of those skirts on where it was sheer from like mid-thigh down. And had she been wearing a mini skirt, it would have been much less sexy than all of that sheer. And I think that that's where my fascination comes in. I mean, I think that that's my take on like what I find stimulating and titillating and erotic. And I think that's the way that it goes into my work.
Is my cartoon First Date in there?
I think so.
I don't know if
First Date is here.
Maybe not. Anyway, it's one of those cartoons where everything is just implied. Not that one. That was not.
No, I get it.
There it is. No, you would go back.
That First Date, yeah, there's First Date.
So, everything is just implied. It's, it's a technique. But again, it's like you let the reader fill it in. And the reader's going to do something that's way more twisted than anything I could draw.
Yeah, like especially we put on some special outfits. Like you give us some hints of what hey, whatever you think is special is what it was.
Yeah.
I like the flippers particularly.
And the other thing, now that I'm writing much longer fiction, I find it's interesting that erotic can be two-sided, really different. Like, danger is erotic, and I have two characters, or maybe that's not even erotic, sexy. Like, two characters who, like in the assassin story, somebody might be ready to kill somebody else, but you're going to have sex. Okay, that can be very sexy. And then later in the story, it's the comfort of somebody you love and trust, and you have sex, and that can be very sexy. So, completely opposites can all be sexy.
And here's one more thing. is it's hard to draw a couple bodies tangling. I have so much respect for people who can do that, because also I do the same thing. We probably all have seen Alison Bechtel show her process of taking photos of herself for all of the different poses that certainly she did that all the way through Fun Home. Like she's posing, closing the car door and lying and the whatever. And she's not the only one that does that. I'm one of those cartoonists.
Do you pose for your sex scenes?
Well, but see, that's the thing, right? Like, you can only be one person. I've done that. Okay, I will tell you this one thing. So, So this book that I did Lust, there were a couple of them that went by. It's the products that looks kind of like Wacky Packs, the Tang and that one, Captain Rug Munch. So for years in The Stranger, I took one of the Lust Lab ads. It's one of the Kinky Personal ads in the back of the paper, and I did Lust Lab ad of the week. I chose one, and I turned it into a one-panel thing. I chose ones that these are just takes on products because they were two of my favorites, but they were all over the place. I could do whatever I want every week. So there was this one time that I needed to have I wanted two people kind of fucking underneath an umbrella and like their legs sticking out, and I used myself as a model. So I did both parts. I did, like his legs with boots. Okay, so like I have a hard time with shoes, and so I had put on boots, and like I'm laying back, and then I have on Converse sneakers and my pants kind of down, and I'm like leaning over like that. And so then with Photoshop,
did you have a tripod?
I had to figure out how they fit together, and it was the perviest thing that I have ever done. It was so hilarious that I lived in this kind of hive of very small one-bedroom funky old apartment building, so we were all artists basically because of peeling paint in the walls and stuff and the hallways. I was like, ding, 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 Sarah, you have to come look what I'm doing right now, because making bigger and smaller and different angles. So I did use myself for a model that one time. But other than that, what are you gonna do? You can't,
Well, I want to talk to you because you draw from life. You're drawing from real people.
Yeah, except when I draw myself. I mean, it's like a lot of the angles I can't draw from the side profiles, so I'll use photos. But all the pictures they're drawn from live straight on the page, not from photos. I take photos after I've drawn all of the outline just for reference colors and stuff. But I would draw, the whole thing without taking a photo.
I do a lot of Google searches, and then, sometimes I just take het people and make them into lesbians. You just take what you have.
Right.
Yeah, I make all of my pictures into.
So getting reference. If you're someone who works from reference photos, not everybody does, right? And a lot of people can draw without reference photos at all, and then. But if you do, and especially with a couple of bodies coming together, it's just harder. Then it's hard to get the kind of. It's harder. It's just logistically harder.
Well, and this is interesting too because, two people involved with each other physically, whether they're fucking or just hugging or lying in bed together, there's so much said in those positions and the body language. And so when I am doing all these Google search, I need two people fucking in a kitchen. One person's on the counter, one person's standing up. And I'm just, how do you find pictures of that? So you go through and you go through and you go through. And it's it's real interesting to say, I'm going to take this picture and change it so it's my version of this and it's my version of the body language, and which is going to be lesbian specific. So,
it can be really exhausting too, because some of my recent stuff I do Google searching for the backgrounds and those kind of things, and it's just the only reference picture I can find of this is of this tattoo that this traditional tattoo that my friend hasn't got yet but needs to have for the thing is on some white guy who's appropriating it and has a tattoo. But that's the only high resolution picture I can find on the internet. Or I'm looking for pictures of where my ancestors are from, being it's all the tourist, it's can be, I'm sure it's similar, having to translate
Right, because there's some
pictures and
positions that
things,
are
like-
going to be harder for me to find online as a lesbian couple than a straight couple. So then you just.
But you made a good point about the positions meaning so much. You're going to find porn, but you're not going to find intimacy or necessarily affection, gentleness. When you see a lot of pictures, if you go look online for a picture of a lesbian couple in bed, you're going to find a bazillion pictures, and a lot of them are clearly sex positions or sexual positions. But finding two women who are being tender or affectionate in a sexual situation, but not necessarily having sex, you're going to find it much, much harder to find.
Or any of that. You like one of them. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like really like controlling. Like this is my vision for something. But one of them is reaching for a book, and the other one has their weight in a certain way. Or I want to show a close up of this kind of thing. That's why it's really great to be able to take your own reference photos.
Yeah, you can
because
so
you
much
can
more
like
specific.
curate the whole thing. It can be really, really frustrating. Even finding like your bodies coming together, holding hands. Like holding hands in the way that you want to express,
Yeah.
holding hands with the right height and
The musculature being in the right level of tension.
you wind up like spending hours trying to find it. You're like, fuck it, I'm going to go find a couple of friends to pose for this because
So you work from your own photographs often?
Often.
We got a question in the back there.
Oh, I was actually gonna ask something that you just answered, like because I was like, what about your friends, man?
Right.
What's wrong?
Well, so I used to live.
She used to have friends.
They're sick of it.
I used to live in an apartment building where there were tons of people around all the time, and now I live in a different place where a lot fewer people are around. I mean, like think about when you're working too. It's the middle of the day or it's the middle of the night or whatever. Like, and I just need to pose right now.
And then sometimes people won't say, like, I want to show someone fucking on the washing machine with this lamp over here and this cord coming down. They won't do it.
Borrow some of my friends. They
Okay.
love it.
They might not know with the lamp aspect.
They'll love it.
Absolutely.
They'll just be your models for life.
Okay.
Awesome.
Any other questions? I thought I saw a question back there. No questions. Questions? We have some time, so if you have. These are brilliant artists.
I also have, tons of research material. You probably have this too. Like, there's the posing books that they have where they show people in different poses from a million angles. And again, it's like, these are not necessarily the people I want to draw, but you change it to fit your thing. Also, I have a lot of books of stock photography in categories, so they have nature and backgrounds and people on vacation or whatever, and it's very analog because you have to go through a book and look for stuff. But I don't know, the research of trying to find that perfect reference photo. I mean, we all get obsessed with it, right? Well, you have real people.
I mean, my recent stuff, a lot of it is research photos. I hate the internet. I mean, I hate spending time on that much time on the internet. It doesn't feel like creating when you spend like 4 hours looking for the right angle of milk or whatever you use.
Sort of. Does it suck your energy for the creation away if you're too busy doing the research for this background stuff, or is it really just part of that process?
I really like that process.
Do you like it?
I draw every day, so I'm constantly making it easier for me to not have to have it be a woman or have to have it be, a man, or I can just, take it, change it, and then just spend the rest of the day like looking for hands and, arms and different facial expressions. And so for me, that's just as fun as setting up my palette, setting up, my brushes and my colors. And to me, it's all the same thing. I love it.
I have chronic pain in my hands, so using the internet is very hard on it.
I have a couple of different tripods and a couple of different, if I can do it really quick, if it's something like feet, I'll just take a photo maybe in that. I have a full-length mirror and I'll just take a photo. If it's something like, I have all these ridiculous, I was looking for a photo the other day and I have all of these reference photos of me like this, like with a spear or something, but I'm holding a mop. and just like a ton. Exactly.
So do you save all your old photos and go through them, or once you use them, they're all digital, right?
Yeah.
So can you go back and do you organize them and archive them, or do you just erase
They're
them?
just a mess of. I someday I'll go back and erase them. And they don't take up a whole lot of space. And so I just have a ton. They're kind of funny to look back in retrospect. Really. I'm holding a banana.
Do you know that story? Do you remember that story? I remember when I posed for that thing because I was working on that thing. Is that something that? Do you remind yourselves of those moments when you were drawing that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's not usually worth Mom, guess what? I found I was holding the flashlight instead of the Statue of Liberty torch,
Yeah, I have from my whole people of colors, for collecting movie posters, they posed for them, but I obviously didn't have an AK-47 or a sword or something,
right.
so they all had my mop.
Right. Yeah.
It's AK, this amazing Indigenous elder activist. He's supposed to be posing with AK-47, and he's got a broom.
Right. Exactly. We should have a show of those
collection.
People are holding mops. We should do a whole bunch of series
the
of
mop
that.
collection. Yes, exactly. Okay. All right. Yes. Question. And I got you.
I typically don't use photo reference when I draw, so just to speak to that a little. I find that I get too obsessed with making it look like the photo if I use references. What ends up happening is if I need a reference, if something's really complicated, I kind of stare at the photo until I can memorize it. And then for everything else, I basically, and this is why I draw alone for the most part, act everything out multiple times until I've internalized the motion.
So you act it out, but you don't photograph it.
Right. Repeatedly until I've memorized the motion. And sometimes I'll look in the mirror. There was even one time I had to grab my shirt, midway, and I was drawing the shirt midway up, and I had to check every time my housemate came into the living room, nothing to see here. But acting it out from getting on the floor to standing on a chair to holding them up to making weird noises when I make facial expressions.
Are you looking in a mirror?
Only if it's something really complicated. But I'm trying to stay inside my head, and that allows me to do poses that I can't actually see, like myself walking away. And that's how I process drawing.
The question?
Wow. Wait, can I just...
That's you live your whole comic, and then you draw it.
But all of those things are really useful tools. I know that pretty much everything that you just said there are things that I know I incorporate too. It was interesting when you were saying I get myself too detailed. I get too detailed if I'm using reference. I'll find that too. And so I'll just erase it and then draw it without looking at it, having hopefully learned whatever knowledge I've needed from it, and just think, because sometimes you need to just think Pictionary, right? You need to just it's harder to simplify down to that point if you have all of those different pieces. And sometimes too, I'll just feel my face kind of sort of just for sometimes it's shortcutting going to look in the mirror, but what does it feel like? And maybe what it feels like is what it looks like as a comic more than it actually looks like in real life. And also, you can't catch yourself mid-run, for example. You just have to know what that feels like and be a cartoonist.
And we all do this where we okay, which way would my thumb be? I mean, how many times have you done that? It's just constant.
I was wondering if any of you have had an experience where you're having an intimate or really hot moment and you're want to pause so that you can then run over and draw it and then resume.
I actually have the opposite of that, where I'm drawing something and I'm I gotta take a break. So I have the opposite of that.
I mean, we have all in this room, I bet, every cartoonist in here has masturbated while they're in between drawing or because of drawing. I would imagine. Right?
Like, and you're like checking everybody, right?
Right. Just me? Okay. I'm asking for a friend.
Okay. So let's. I have one last question. Is do any of you have any funny stories to share about making queer erotica? And you've shared some pretty funny ones so far. So if you have anything else, so the one that I was coming in was I have a picture here when I was working on the anthology with Rika Takashima. We were sitting down and taking one of her stories, which I had specifically asked her, hey, could you draw a sex scene in this story? And she had never really drawn like really sexy sex, you know? She'd never drawn really flat out sex. So we were sitting there and she drew it and she wrote it in Japanese, so we had to sit there and decide on the sound effects. We're like, is it slish? Is it flush? Glitch? The two of us are sitting at myself like hysterical. People are laughing hysterically because we're like, yes, slish and glick. That'll work. Like, we had no idea what we were doing. Like, who does this sort of thing? And we were talking, Ellen and I were talking about how in Japan they have a established set of sound effects in manga, and there may very well be sound effects in English comics that I had no idea, so I had to recreate them from scratch. So I mean, like ah and ooh and that sort of thing is obvious, but you know, slish. How many S's in slish? You know, so that's my amusing story of publishing in porn.
I had one piece that I was hoping you'd show, but it's not in there.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I just had a lot of fun making this piece because it just, to me, it's two angels on a cloud and one is spanking the other one for Valentine's Day.
Oh, I love that.
And I'm like smaller, like they're like this big and I'm like that big sitting on the cloud and I'm like, so I had the most fun drawing that.
Do you remember what you called it?
Maybe spankers. Yeah, I had the most fun drawing that.
Yay! That's awesome. That should be a t-shirt.
And your expression is great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where would we find this?
On my website. It's an actual painting. So.
Do you have prints?
I don't have prints yet.
Ooh, prints.
But yeah, a lot of the work that is here is kind of recent. So it'll get there.
Her paintings.
But again, if I put that on a t-shirt and I wore it, it would be.
Do you have any of those paintings with the newspapers or the?
You saw my what? I said just pick whatever.
Right. I just picked random ones that I have here. Label legal maybe.
Let's see. Fire.
Yeah, talk about these. These are beautiful.
Erotic events.
Wow.
And explain how you made these.
I take the back of the Village Voice, those bodywork ads, and I tile a canvas, and then I paint images of women that, you know, I like to see. On top that is. Yeah.
That's great.
So.
I'm gonna buy all your paintings. I need a blue and elaborate.
Is that called Leaf on the first one that you showed?
No, that's actually just glitter.
Oh.
Yeah. I really like to use glitter and beads and stuff, and aluminum foil, stuff like that.
Cool. Okay, we got like time for maybe one or two more questions.
I have a comic sex story I've told a million times, so I'll tell it again. Once I met someone in a bar and went home with her, and she had my cartoons on her wall.
Did she know who you were?
And I didn't tell her. I was using not a real name because I didn't want to see her again.
The difference between your experience.
And you've never seen her again?
No.
Okay.
You know, it was another city.
Oh.
Going through your work and like reflecting back, particularly all of you have had long careers in your lives, but from different elements, you've been publishing over a longer period of time. Did you reflect about your own changing sexuality, like your own sense of yourself? Did you see anything that surprised you looking back on earlier work as well?
Well, the first thing you notice is that you can't draw like you used to. And I mean, in some ways that's good because the way you used to draw was really kind of bad and clumsy. But in other ways, I think all of us have that experience where you look at your early work and it was so uninhibited because you didn't know better. And now you know so much and you have so many different standards in your head. And so when you started out, you just kind of do whatever you can just to do it. So on the one hand, I can draw better. On the other hand, oh, I lost that thing. And that's kind of weird. But the sexuality, I don't know if it's changed. There's certain things I don't need to say anymore because I've said them. Maybe that's the difference.
I definitely feel like my work, I mean, when that person asked me to do the works, I was like, okay. I was like really shy and inhibited and stuff, and I definitely think doing all those portraits of people nude and whatever brought me into my like queerness and sexuality from doing the work. I mean, it was probably already there, but...
So your drawings made you queer?
Well, no. But, yeah, it helped me, like, articulate it or to be, definitely my sexuality came into it through doing the work.
I'd say looking through my work, like you say, like looking through and figuring out what to bring here made me realize just how much of a role sexuality has played in my work, really pretty much from the beginning. Just kind of threaded through all the way from the beginning to now. Still, it made me happy.
I feel like I'm at the beginning of really being honest about the things that I've gone through and who I am. So all of that work is emerging now because in a lot of my books, like I was a little afraid to be on this panel because I'm like, I don't have a lot of stuff. So I don't know. But I feel like there's so much more in me that's going to come out, and now I see it's got to. So there'll be more.
What would you all like to see from queer comics going forward? I mean, one of the cool things I think about this event is there's so many young people and there's so many new creators coming up, and I think webcomics has changed the dynamic of how to get stuff out there and how to get an audience. So what do you think you would like to see? Something that you think is not necessarily that's missing, but something that you really want to see in queer comics?
I just like more variety, I love the fact that there's more women of color. I like that there's more transgender comics. I like that there's more just variety queer comics has always encompassed this huge range of styles and topics, but I want to see even more. Mm-hmm. And, didn't we have a panel on transgender sci-fi and spec fic and all this? I mean, I like that we're pushing boundaries and exploring new ways, and sex in many more kinds of variety is good.
What she said.
Okay, more is the answer to that. More. Okay, great. Yes, question?
No.
Any more questions? Got time for one more.
Can I make an announcement?
Yes.
If anyone is interested in a workshop that I'm giving at the Studio Museum on June 21st from 12 to 2, I'll be there.
Yeah,
and it's free.
What is it?
I'm giving a workshop on, just making comics and expressing yourself in a different form. So June 21st at the Studio Museum in Harlem.
Excellent.
I have an art show May 29th at Chasm Gallery in Portland. I don't know the address on me. That's the address on me, but you can give me your email or email it details to you. And I have stuff, cards and things, and a book online I can give you a card for. It's on issue.com/Texta Queen.
Cool.
And your books are on sale here?
My books are not on sale here. I'm sorry I didn't have time to get that together. But you can find them on Rosarium Publishing. Jennifer's Journal, Life of a Suburban Girl.
What are you up to next? Sleep.
Stuff. I don't know. It's a break into whole.
Back to teaching.
What? Yeah, teaching. I'm juggling a bunch of different projects.
You're doing a mural.
I'm doing a mural. I'm doing a mural for the light rail system, the new light rail system in Seattle, and so I'm doing 2 really big murals for Capitol Hill, smack in the middle of Seattle. And I'll tell you how big they are because they're really big. So there's 2. They're street level, so everybody will be able to see them. Actually, I'll put this in. They're hands. They're portraits of hands, which is based on a series that I did called Big Fucking Hands, and they were all hands in sexual positions. They're not, but they're based on that, and so you all know that. So there's walking fingers, and that's going to be 28 feet wide by 20 feet high.
Wow.
And there's 2 hands coming together like this, and that's crossed pinkies, and that's 10 feet high by 40 feet long.
Wow.
Giant.
I know, yeah, really big. So I'm working on that.
And after you've rested from this, Jennifer, what do you do?
We're doing a reading on Saturday. There's going to be like 30 queer cartoonists reading at School of Visual Arts, and information is in this or on the web. It's Saturday, 1:30 to 3:30. I'm teaching a class in Provincetown, Massachusetts. It's a week-long workshop. There's flyers outside. And the place that does it has some housing available. So I know P-Town is really super expensive, but check that out. And it's in July. I think it's the 19th through the 26th. And the flyers are on that free table. It's Fine Arts Work Center. You can also get it online. And I want to thank you all for being here because this conference, I mean, it really came together.
They sure did. You did amazing.
And I really, one of the things that I said to people was that there should be no panel that's all cisgendered white men, unless the topic is cisgendered white men and gay comics. And so it was very important for me to have people of color, transgender cartoonists, and women cartoonists involved. And if this conference does grow, I really want to make sure that that continues.
Excellent. And
So thank you.
I'd like to thank all of you. You were just fabulous. Let's get a big round of applause for you.